Hello, Saturnalia Starfighters. Welcome to Season 6 of Shameless Cashgrab Shark Movies, which you would already know if you saw the Season 5 wrap-up video, but actually, come to think of it, I imagine the title of this video is going to be a dead giveaway, but speaking of, yes, that is the reason this video is coming out on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, depending on how editing goes. But what you may not know is that we're actually breaking tradition a little bit here for this first episode of Season 6. In the past, the first movie covered on the show has been the first movie on the first disc. The exception to that being Season 3, because unlike most of these sets, the order of the films on the discs and the order on the back here, it was, Season 3, it was alphabetical, and yeah, sorry that I'm rambling, this is like my fifth take, and I was having trouble with the camera earlier. So, Santa Jaws. Santa Jaws. Yes, really.
And now I have watched Santa Jaws. Still, kinda can't believe this is a real movie. But anyway, plot summary courtesy of IMDb. Trying to survive the family Christmas, Cody makes a wish to be alone, which ends up backfiring when a shark manifests and kills his entire family. Boy, if I had a nickel. We open on a human Santa about to kill a woman and feed her to a shark before her boyfriend comes to save her. Casey manages to kick Santa into the tank where the shark eats him, but then swims off with Santa's hat on its fin to the sound of ominous music, and if you guessed this was a fantasy sequence, you got it in one. We cut to the main character of the movie, Cody, drawing a comic book of everything I just described, while another kid tries to get his attention. The two are in a comic shop and are arguing about how their comic, titled Santa Jaws, should end before the store's owner asks them to help untangle Christmas lights. This scene is a bad omen for the rest of the picture. Not because of the dialogue, which is fine, I guess, or the acting, which is passable. I'm talking about the framing. I don't usually comment on camera work. As I've often said, this isn't a review show, it's initial reactions plus jokes. I am not a professional film critic. Or even an amateur film critic, really. So when I notice something like this... Okay, during the first conversation of the movie, when the camera is on the person speaking, they don't look like they're talking to the other person. They look like they're talking to the camera. That itself is not a bad thing. Spike Lee uses that technique to great effect. Just look at Do the Right Thing, aka the movie that should have won Best Picture that year, not Driving Miss fucking Daisy. But those scenes weren't about conversation. This scene is supposed to be. I really hope the whole movie isn't like this. The guy who runs the comic shop is annoying and I don't like him. I'm hoping he gets eaten. This movie seems to borrow from the Big Bang Theory school of nerd comedy, which is, it thinks that just a character making a Star Trek reference by itself is funny. Cody goes home and one of the first things we see him do is watch a girl who lives across the street put out the garbage through binoculars. These two are going to end up dating by the end of the movie, calling it now. We start to meet the movie's future victims, aka Cody's family at this point, including his uncle, a businessman cliché, and his new snobby blonde wife. No question these two die, the only variable is will they both die in the same scene or not. Cody's grandfather is here, and I think he might be played by the serial killer from Too Many Cooks. Cody's mom is cooking, and I think we see his brother and father, and honestly, half these people are going to be dead soon, so I'm not even going to try and learn their names unless they do something interesting. Family drama happens. Nothing I haven't seen before, really. The only thing of note is that the uncle seems to honestly not get why it was bad form to not tell his brother that he was getting married until a week before the ceremony, which was held in Monaco. Gee, and you wonder why he didn't make it. There's stuff about Cody's drawings getting him into trouble at school, and honestly, I think I might be more invested in this stuff if this sequence wasn't being filmed like a sitcom. I know this movie isn't meant to be taken too seriously, but I'm not hopeful for a so bad it's good gem at this point anymore. I've said this before, but part of what makes a So Bad It's Good movie fun to watch is the sincerity. The people involved were really trying their best, or at the very least were having fun making what they knew was going to be a throwaway picture the studio was going to shove out onto home video as a tax write-off. I'm not getting either of those vibes from this movie at all. This feels less like a cheesy movie and more like someone trying to make what they think is a cheesy movie. Granted, this is all just the first act so far. There's room for it to turn around, but like I said, not hopeful. So the parents overreact to the drawing, as expected, and they ground Cody before a big party at the comic shop he was hoping to go to, as expected, and the film's score gets more sitcom-y, and Cody finds a present from his grandfather in his room. It looks like a rejected model for a sonic screwdriver, and is in a box with German writing on it. Turns out it's a pen. So I guess this is how our title character gets brought to life. And following this, we have our first actual surprise of the movie, as the grandfather, the one person in the family Cody seems to actually like, becomes the first victim. Cody tries to tell the family, who react by doing nothing, except for the mom who belittles him and takes away his phone. Fairly standard fare for this kind of movie, though Cody had enough sense to just say something attacked Grandpa and didn't mention the shark with the Santa hat on its fin. Then we get an action movie montage of Cody packing up art supplies and putting on a Christmas sweater. Okay, that's a little funny. He goes to see his friend and the comic shop owner, and they are about as helpful as you'd expect, which is to say, not at all. We cut back to the family, including the uncle's new wife, who mentioned earlier that she's a model on a site called Snapstagram. Ha ha. And in this scene we learn she adds hashtags to her verbal speech. Ha ha. This is how boomers think everyone under the age of 40 talks, isn't it? And the girl from across the street comes into play. As it turns out, she's a comic book fan, and the owner of the comic store gave her a copy of the unfinished Santa Jaws comic from the start of the movie. Cody's uncle is the next to go, but we don't really see much of it. This movie is listed as unrated, but given the relative lack of blood for a friggin' shark attack movie, this feels like a PG-13 at most. I don't think I've heard any strong swearing yet either, now that I think about it. Was this made for TV? Oh, for the love of it. It was made for TV. This is a sci-fi movie. It literally has a TV PG rating on its Rotten Tomatoes page. Ugh. This explains so much. Oh, by the way, the model wife does not die. Her name's Georgia, but I'm just going to keep calling her model wife. I'm just going to let you know that right now. Not here, anyway. If she does live through the whole movie, though, safe bet she spends the rest of the movie in the bikini top. Spoiler, she does. Also, cut-off jean shorts and heels. After Cody and his friend, and I don't... Did they give this guy a name in the movie? I don't even remember. After they introduced themselves to Jenna, the future forced romantic interest of the movie who had the original Santa Jaws comic book, the girl across the street, we go back to the model wife, finding Cody's parents and telling them what she saw. Cody's brother decides this means Cody was telling the truth, but his parents chalk it up to her just being in shock. Cody's friend, and Jenna, along with Cody, get to witness Santa Jaws eating a man in an elf outfit drinking, so at least that saves him the trouble of having to tell Jenna why he needed the comic back. I'll give the movie a point for that. Always good to skip redundant exposition. And, fun fact, the guy in the elf outfit is actually the film's stunt coordinator. So, blah blah, Cody's group meets up with comic shop guy again, Cody's brother and model wife are there, and they decide they need to take down the shark themselves, and the music tells us this is supposed to be inspiring. I guess. Cody's parents narrowly avoid an attack by a laughably bad CGI shark at this point, and finally believe him. And I'm not kidding about the laughably bad part. The shark looks better through most of the rest of the movie. Most, not all. Before and after this scene. That was the best they could do for those couple of seconds, huh? I had a realization at this point, though. I can give the movie props for not falling into the trap a lot of modern horror/monster movies do these days, where they make every single character just utterly loathsome. I think I've ranted about this in a past episode, but that probably would have been during season 3, so that was a while ago. The grandfather seemed like a nice enough guy, the uncle was more oblivious than malicious, and the only thing we saw the guy dressed as an elf do was drink a beer. Would be nice if at least one of the victims so far kinda deserved it, though, just for a change of pace. And it turns out Jenna can read German, and translates the text on the box with the pen. Another decent scene here as Cody realizes that this means that Santa Jaws being real is in fact his fault, as he'd used the pen to fill out the lines on a drawing of Santa Jaws while muttering to himself about hating his family and thinking he'd be better off on his own. The reason this scene works is that Cody doesn't actually say anything. The music and the look on his face says it all. In fact, it may be the best acting in the whole movie so far. This is sadly followed by 2 very weak jokes. This movie's comedy is worse than mine, and I still use clip jokes in 2020. We get a kinda clever scene where the heroes try to lure Santa Jaws into a trap to kill it. Cody's friend wrote the story for the comic, so he knows that Santa Jaws is attracted to all things Christmas. So he borrows Cody's brother's phone and plays a Christmas song on it. A public domain one, of course. And it does work to get the shark's attention. Though this is only the halfway point of the movie, so even before the shark shows up, something's going to go wrong. But hey, points for not having the friend to make another weak-ass pun when he did it. Oh yeah, I should mention up to this point, Cody's friend's big thing is really lame puns, and I mean in-universe lame puns. Nobody laughs at them in the movie either. And yeah, the trap doesn't work. And honestly, this shouldn't be shocking. These are some of the worst attempts at shooting a crossbow or throwing a spear I have ever seen. It looks like they barely even tried, and that's when the weapons are coming from off-camera, so you can't blame the actors for that. Model wife ends up getting eaten, though, which at least spares us an unfunny running gag, though how she ends up dead defies logic even by this movie's standards. Points for her managing to take out one of Santa Jaws' eyes in the process, though. During all of this, the remaining heroes realize this means that in addition to being attracted to Christmassy things, they mentioned earlier that Santa Jaws is a she, can only be hurt by Christmassy things. Model wife took out her eye by stabbing it with a candy cane. This reveal would have made more sense had they actually shown the crossbow bolts, yes, finally got it, bouncing off her like the characters say they did, when what we saw on the screen was one missing entirely, and another hitting her directly, but only barely breaking the skin. Somebody in the visual effects department done fucked up. And, okay, yeah. The whole thing about she can only be harmed by Christmassy things is silly, but it's the good kind of silly. The kind of thing I was hoping for from this movie. I just wish the rest of the movie had been like this. We're past the halfway point, and I am only just now starting to care. After this, we get some high school drama stuff that is major tone whiplash, but I guess it's character development, so fine, whatever. This leads to an action scene that results in Santa Jaws being hurt, but Cody's friend gets eaten in the process. The one non-white person in the whole movie. So we're going with that cliche, huh? Points off for that one, movie. Yeah, he was annoying, but still. And I just realized I think I might have skipped the part where I mentioned that he was Asian, but at least not stereotypically so in the script. Whoops. Oh, wait, no. I did mention that just in the random thoughts section. They finally figure out that since the pen created the shark, they can use it to hurt her. Cody realizes that he dropped it at the comic book shop, so everyone goes back to get it. But while they were out, comic shop guy had found it and used it to draw himself a girlfriend, and also a car and money, and this whole bit is unfunny and goes on way too long and ends up with the comic shop guy getting eaten. And apparently, so does Jenna, which I did not expect, though given how cliche this movie has been so far, I'm expecting a fake out on that one. Another bit of cleverness. this movie does have some of that, is when Cody initially tries to redraw Santa Jaws with no teeth, but the shark improvises by knocking over a container of ornaments at the docks, and improvises new teeth with the crushed balls. There is no way for me to make that not sound dirty, is there? Anyway, this bit is stupid, but in a fun way. Again, what I wish the rest of the movie had been like. He also tries drawing a candy cane spear, but this only results in Santa Jaws now having a horn, which you've likely already seen show up a few times in the caps for this episode. Cody and his brother eventually reunite with their parents, who come up with a plan to kill the shark, followed by a nicely edited montage. The resulting action scene ends with Cody's brother and father being eaten before they manage to kill Santa Jaws with an exploding turkey. Believe it or not, that actually makes sense in context. Or at least the shark is assumed dead until it snags Cody's mom when she goes to retrieve the magic pen that got dropped during an argument. Cody is able to use the pen ultimately to kill the shark and bring back his family, which, okay, kinda cheap, but on the other hand, he was drawing the whole thing in a panic, and probably wasn't even entirely sure it would work, so I guess I can allow it on the grounds that it isn't entirely out of nowhere. Because, with the comic shop guy's Russian girlfriend from earlier, it is established that the pen can create people, so I just wish that Cody's, Bond one-liner here had been better. Ho, 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 you son of a fish. That just doesn't work. On any level. And they put it in the trailer. I'm not kidding. They put that in the trailer. They ended the trailer on that line. They were proud of this. They were proud of ho, 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 you son of a fish. But yeah, the shark explodes in a green light, and Cody wakes up in his bed with the implication that this was all a dream and I'm annoyed again. I hate maybe it was all a dream thing so much. Might have been more interesting to have everyone come back but remember having been eaten. But yeah, the end. Although we are never shown if Cody's friend or the elf costume guy or comic shop guy were also restored to life, but I guess we're just supposed to assume that. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. I like the logo. In fact, if you could just go ahead and throw that up on screen here for a second. I know we usually save that for the end of the episodes here, but yeah, just see. This is nice. This is clever. I like it. Normally you folks at home would not hear that part of the episode making process, but we're still in lockdown, because there's still a pandemic going on, because our elected officials are morons. Right, back to Santa Jaws. Cody has some commentary about school uniforms that, on principle, I actually agree with, but I am not a fan of how it was delivered in the movie. Here's the part I thought I'd skipped earlier. I swear the character of Cody's friend exists only to provide lame puns. Points for not having the one Asian character in the movie be a math whiz, but this is a literal move at best. It was driving me nuts where I recognized the guy who played the comic store owner, or manager, or whatever, so I finally stopped and looked him up. And I still don't know where I know him from because none of his other acting credits listed on IMDb are things I recognize. Maybe he was in a Google Translate Sings video? Finding caps for this movie on Google Images was turning out to be a pain again. I kinda hoped it being a more recent movie would make that less of a problem. Because, this movie's from 2018, which I think actually makes it the most recent movie I have covered on the show so far. And that's including the Baywatch movie, which I did for a bonus episode. And taking a quick look at the shark bait set. Yeah, it's going to stay the most recent movie I've covered on this show for a while. Anyway, the point is, I'm gonna go back to taking some screenshots again on my end, just to be safe. Like I did last season. Not much I can do about the lack of posters or DVD covers, though. Suggestions for how to deal with such things in the future would be welcome in the comments section. And now it's time for this episode's Cool Shark Fact. You might remember I promised those in the Season 5 wrap-up episode. Hammerhead sharks have superb bioelectric senses that is in part afforded by their head shape, which also happens to give them near absolute 360-degree vision. Also in the comment section, let me know if you want me to keep the Cool Shark Fact between the random thoughts and the final verdict. Just leave any comments at all, it would really help with the algorithm. So, final verdict. I was not expecting much from a movie with the title Santa Jaws, but even those low expectations were not met for the most part. I've seen worse from movies doing this show. Worse special effects, even taking when the movie was made into account. I'm not going to ding a movie from the 30s for not having realistic sets. I've seen worse acting, worse editing, worse music, etc. But that doesn't help Santa Jaws. What good scenes there are, and there are a few to be fair, only serve to highlight how much the rest of it fails. This is further not helped by the movie taking too long to get to the interesting parts. I've run into this kind of movie on the show before, and it's always frustrating. Things really start to turn around, but the enjoyment is tampered quite a bit by a feeling of, why couldn't the whole thing have been like this? I don't hate this movie. Heck, I could see a future where if I have friends I can hang out with in real life, we could put this on one Christmas week to riff on, but it could have been more. It not having to be toned down enough to air on basic cable television definitely would have helped. At least in my opinion. So, well, I'll see you next time on Shameless Cashgrab when we go back to doing the movies in this set in order. The next movie we will be watching is called Ghost Shark. Have fun. Stay safe.